They lived in Walk-On too. They come directly
Yeah.
from Rushford up to Walk-On then, or?
Tor did, I think, and then he went to Lake Park because
Oh,
there
that's
he
right.
had a lot of relatives.
Yeah,
And there's where he met his wife, Ida,
and that's where they were married.
and that's where they were married.
But now, was Alfred the oldest? He wasn't the oldest in the
No,
family.
Carl was the oldest, then it was Alfina, then it was Alfred, and then it was Bert, and he died of the flu epidemic in 1918. He died in the morning, and the little boy died in the evening.
That was Bert's little boy.
That was Bert's little boy. And then it was Berta and Teeter, and Berta, Olaf, and Teeter, and Gottfried.
Gottfried. Well, they had a pretty large family then. There was how many?
Yeah.
How many altogether? And 3 girls, was it? Bertha and Alfina?
Only two
Bertha and
girls.
Alfina.
2 girls and 1, 2, 5 boys.
Yeah. Well, then you met Alfred, and you were married at Gary?
Yeah, we were married on the Stone Farm by Reverend Norby.
Reverend Norby.
Yeah.
And this, you said, was in 1914? 14.
Yeah. Then we moved to the Shosted place, and we rented and farmed there for 2 years.
Alfred was farming then at that time.
Yes. And then Dad always wanted us to have something for ourselves, so he bought 340s west of the track in Gary. And then we bought it back from him again. And we paid 3% interest. And then Alfred, the mail carrier, he was sick. So then he wanted Alfred to be his sub. So he substituted them in all winter. And then in the spring, Irene was born. And then 3 weeks after Irene was born, Gary burned.
Now, that was quite a time in history, too. It burned most of the town, didn't it?
Yes.
Well, now, when Alfred and you were first married and he was farming,
Yeah.
then he took over the mail route, and I'm sure that there were probably some that weren't all good times either. Times were pretty tough at that
Yeah,
time.
he had horses. He had to have horses. And then he hauled the mail all winter, and then, of course, in the summertime, he started to farm, and then he hauled the 15 days in the summer. And then Ole Dahl was the name of the mailman, and he resigned.
Well, what was his 15 days now? What? How come
Well,
it
they
was 15?
got 15 days vacation.
And then
See?
he hauled while the other carrier
Yes.
was on vacation. Yeah.
And this then they had examination and I don't remember how many, but there was quite a few of them that took it, and there was one that it didn't take him long to write it out, and all of the others, and it was an awful hard examination. They had, I don't know how many addresses they had to correct because they were all mixed up over the whole United States, you know.
That was part of the examination.
Yes,
Try and straighten those out.
and then they had a lot of examples to write. And, well, anyway, it was Halvor Lee that was the postmaster at that time, and then he called Alfred and said he had gotten the returns, but this other guy, he had come in and said, well, he says, he got it. Well, have you heard any kick about it? Yes, Halvor Lee said, I don't think you'll have any mail to carry, because he wasn't an honest man.
The one that had won, or one that...
The one that won it.
Yeah.
And so he says, well, he says, I've got a good job. He says, I don't want it. So Alfred was next highest, so that's how he got it.
he started carrying mail in what year?
Let's see now.
Irene was born, you said.
Well, yeah, she was born the first spring we lived in Gary. And he started as a regular carrier, then must have been, let's see, because he hauled that winter and that spring. Then they took that exam, and then he started in the, must have been in 1917 or something.
1917. Now Irene was born in what year was she?
Yeah, what year would she be? I was married 2 years and a half. I was 21 and a half when she was
Well, you were born. You were married in 1914.
Yeah.
But you were born. I mean, you were married in December. So 2.5 years was I supposed to be 1917 then.
Yeah, yes. I think she was she was born the 9th of April
Yeah.
in
So she'd be
1917.
59 now then.
Yeah.
And do you remember anything about the children as they were growing up? Now Irene was the oldest.
Yes, and then
And
Pierce
she had some experiences in school too. I know you mentioned
yes,
about.
and then Pierce was born in November in 1919.
When Irene was going to school, she didn't know an awful lot of English, I guess,
No,
either, did she?
Grandma never wanted us to talk English to the kids.
Was this Alfred's mother? No?
Yes. So we talked Norwegian all the time. Well, I remember the first day she went to school. She came home and she put the lunch pail on the table and she says, "Jeg vil ikke gå på skolen mer." And I asked her why. Nej, de kallar mig roundhead.
And what does that mean now?
A roundhead.
Oh, the roundhead. Was that a saying they give to the kids that couldn't talk English or
Yeah.
something, or didn't talk English?
Yeah, sure. Well, then I said, well, you know, pretty soon it won't take you long to learn English. And then you'll be smarter than they because you know 2 languages. And that helped. Then she was okay.
Where was she going to school then? Was that out
In
in the
Gary,
country? Oh, she
Gary.
went to school right in town.
In town, yeah.
You were living in town then?
Yeah, west of the track.
Yeah. So when Alfred got the mail carrier job,
Yeah.
that's when you moved into
Yeah.
town.
And then we sold 5 acres to Olaf. He got to be he worked for Standard Oil.
Oh, yeah.
And then we sold 3 acres to Oscar Tordal. He had a cow. And then we sold 5 acres to the Gary baseball team. Then we traded the other 80 acres to a guy in Manoman. I forget his name now. So then we just had some 20 acres left then.
Well, now this baseball field that you sold to the village of Gary, you sold property to the village of Gary so they could have a baseball field. Did Alfred play? Was he playing baseball?
No, they played sometimes, but
He didn't play on the Gary team.
no, he didn't. But he played on when he was in Montana.
Yeah.
Then he played on the team.
Now, what was he doing in Montana?
He was catcher.
What kind of work did he do in Montana? This was before you were married.
Yeah, well, he worked on the farms.
He worked on
out
farms
there,
out
yeah.
there too. Did he do some ranching too?
And then but he worked in the pinery in the wintertime, hauling logs.
Hauling logs. Yeah.
Yeah.
And seems to me I remember that he mentioned he'd worked as a fireman someplace too. And was that out in
Yeah.
Montana?
Yes. Yes, he did. He worked as a fireman in town. in the wintertime.
Was that out in Montana too? or
Yes, that
it?
was
Yeah.
in Montana. See, his mother's cousin moved with his family out to Montana.
This was
And-
Kalispell now.
Yeah, that's how Alfred happened to go out there and work.
Had he worked any place else besides out in Montana when he was? Because I know a lot of the young fellows at that time had to go out and earn extra money to
Yes,
keep things
he
going.
he worked. He after he had worked in Montana, he came and he worked in North Dakota for Guy Miller for 2 years, and that's where he came from, and that's when I met him.
Now Pierce was born in 1919. you said.
Yeah, in November 1919.
And then Joyce was born in 1930.
Yeah. And then Aaron was born. Well, Joyce was 9 years old then.
Yeah, Aaron. See, what year would that have been? 9 years old. It would have been about 39. It would have been born in 39 because she's 10 years older than Dawn, and Dawn was born in 49.
Yeah.
Well, now when the other kids were being raised or brought up, Pierce. Now, do you remember anything while Pierce was growing up? Some of the things that.
Well, he graduated from high school then in the spring on a Friday evening, and Monday morning he joined the Army, and he served there for 20 years.
Yeah. But now most of them remember. I know when I think back, on our kids, raising our kids, there's certain things that they have a tendency of pulling and doing, and that they have to get punished for, and things like that. Where there's times like that, I'm sure with Pierce and Irene. And
Oh yes.
you remember any of those instances? Something that they pulled on you? And
I remember Irene was she took care of Pierce, outside, and he'd be waiting for Alfred to come because they would meet him before they got to the main road. Well, Pierce started out, and she come hollering, and well, of course, I could run faster than him, so I got a hold of him, and I said, Dad isn't coming yet. But they always got a ride, and in the wintertime, then, I had to dress them up, and then they got a ride in the snow.
Pierce and Irene and Joyce and Aaron, they're all going to listen to this tape sometime, and I'd like to, have you tell me some of the things that they probably have forgotten about, and that maybe they'd like to forget about, and maybe we can bring them up now so that we can get it on the tape here.
Well, I remember when Irene started to go to school, Pierce was awful lonesome. So he had a high chair, and he sat that over by the window, and there he sat and wrote all day long, and was looking to see when Irene was coming back from school. And I remember before she went to school, they were always going on the train, and they'd take all the chairs and put through the kitchen and the dining room, and then Irene, she would sit with her doll and a shawl on herself in the back chair, and Pierce would be in the front chair, and he was the one that drove the engine,
He was the engineer then.
Yeah, he was the engineer, and he was tooting away,
Well, they didn't have the expensive toys to play with that kids have got now, so
No.
they had to make their own.
No, they
entertainment.
didn't. They sure didn't. And I remember he had an old teddy bear, and it was getting pretty tough looking, so we bought him a new one for Christmas, and we bought Irene a doll, and Irene had a little rocker, and we sat them both in there, and when they came down, then they see. But Pierce would always go back to his old teddy bear. He liked that one better than the new one.
Well, now, the kids must have got into a little mischief once in a while, certainly, didn't they?
Oh, yes, I suppose they did. But I can't really remember any.
I know Aaron had a broken arm once.
No, that was Pierce.
Oh, that was Pierce that had a broken arm.
Yeah.
How did he break
He,
his arm?
they were grading a new road past our place. And they had a big culvert, a steel culvert. And here he was running after a gopher, and he fell and he hit his arm against the edge of that culvert and broke it. Well, that was on the 4th of July. We had a cottage at Twin Lakes, but we come home and we thought we should have gone to Ada to the fair, but we didn't. We stayed home. Well, we had laid down, we were kind of tired, and we laid down, and Pierce came home, and he went upstairs and lay down, and when he came down again, he said, you know, my arm hurts terrible. So Alfred took him to Twin Valley, and Dr. Hogsett, he said he's got a bad break, but he says, I don't dare set it. So he was along with Alfred when they came home. Well, then I went along too, and we went to Crookston. And they broke that arm up 3 times because they put the wrong kind of slings on it. And,
there's always mistakes, I guess, that can be made. What?
Yes.
Anything that you remember about Joyce and Aaron when they were growing up? Some of the things that they got into?
I remember Joyce. She was quite an actress. She sure put on the program for us all the time.
She's still doing that.
So she was real bright in school, and of course it seemed when she got older, she was a good singer too, and she sang for just about all the weddings that was around there. And I remember Kitty Garden was the one that played for her all the time. So she said, I think we better hire a driver, the way we have to go all the time. And I remember the first day of Aaron went to school, I walked with him out on the front porch. We had moved over by the church then. And he turned around, and I was standing there kind of smiling, and he came running back and hugged me. Don't laugh, Mama. Don't laugh, Mama.
You didn't think it was that big a joke to go to
no,
school? Huh?
No, he sure didn't.
He thought you were enjoying it, I suppose.
Yeah.
Well, now...
Then when he graduated from high school, then he joined the Air Force.
Well, I'm sure now, through all these years, that things weren't always that easy either, because there were hard times.
Oh boy, hard times. I used to take the best pieces of Alfred's underwear and make underwear for Pierce, and the same from my underwear for Irene. And we sewed everything. We didn't buy anything new.
No, it wasn't that easy to get things.
And you never bought a cookie or anything. You always had to bake everything.
And you done a lot of work, I know, with boarding teachers, so that there'd be a little extra income.
Yes. Then well, we built 2 houses in Gary, and then we bought and remodeled 2 houses. And the last house by the church is when I had all the teachers upstairs, rooming them. And I had when we lived in the big house, I had 2 boys that went to school, and they roomed and boarded at our house. So every morning it was 5 lunches to make, because Alfred always took lunch along on the mail route too.
When did he start hauling with mail with a car? Do you remember? I know he hauled mail for many years with horses.
Yeah,
And he had a couple teams, I guess, didn't he? One team
yes.
out on the road someplace.
Yes, and when we moved from across the track and bought that big place, why then the farmers around wanted him to use their horses in the wintertime and feed them and take care of them, you know. So that's what he did, and then well, I remember one winter he had all those horses there, but he didn't use them all winter, because he had they started the school buses, and they bought one of these here cars with the skis on.
Mm-hmm. Kind of a snowmobile.
Yeah. And then, so after that, he used horses. Didn't use horses anymore, because, and I know when he used horses, they'd wait for him when he comes, so the roads would be open. So then they'd go riding. But some of the would help him an awful lot, but some didn't help him any. But he'd cross the ditches and cut the wires and had to drive in on the fields, and then he'd unhook the horses and drive back and forth, and then he'd hook them up again, and then he'd go a little further. And he couldn't make it all over, so Pierce would carry the mail and walked and carried these big Sears Roebuck and Montgomery catalogs, and
it was a little different than what some of the carriers have got today now, with the
yes.
hard surface roads. And then he was docked on pay if he didn't make every mile too, I guess, wasn't he?
Yes, I remember he had to, what you call it, when you can't pull
detour?
He had to detour many miles, and he never got anything for it. Well, of course, the inspector used to come every spring, and then as they went out of the post office, Alfred asked the inspector, now he says, I've been hauling mail all these extra miles, he says, am I not entitled to some money for that? Why, of course, he says, you figure it out. Well, he says, I want you to come in and tell the postmaster this, because he tells me that I'm not entitled to that, because they were building bridges and that, see?
Well, now, Alfred enjoyed pretty good health all the way.
Yes, he had real good health.
And you had a few problems with surgery and different things.
Well, I've had 5 surgeries.
Yeah, and now quite a struggle in raising the fine family that you did raise. Now they're pretty well scattered around. Pierce, maybe just tell now where Pierce is. And
Kansas City, Missouri.
And him and his wife Irene.
Yes.
They have
that's one son, Duane.
And he's through high school now and going on into
now
college.
He's going to college. And Irene and Clarence, they farmed in Monoman for quite a while, and then they moved to Cloquet, and they got 3 girls and 5 great-grandchildren.
And then I married your other daughter, Joyce.
And then Arnie and Joyce were married the 31st of August.
In 1947.
Yeah.
And we have 4 children and
yeah,
2 grandchildren for you, or
Yeah.
2 great-grandchildren for you.
so I have 10 grandchildren and 11 great-grandchildren.
And then Aaron and Cheryl live at Maple Plain, and they're
Yeah. Now they are moving to Kansas City, Missouri, Kansas City.
So when you go to Kansas City now, you'll be able to see half the family at one time.
Yeah, maybe so if I ever get there.
And now what about the present? You're living here in Fergus Falls. You've got your nice home here at 12.
I moved from Gary to. I stayed with Joyce and Arnie a year.
Well, to go back just a little ways now, when Alfred retired from carrying mail, I think he had about, 47 years, or how many years did he carry mail?
42 years.
42 years.
Yeah.
And
he retired in 58, and Pierce retired in 59.
20 years
from service
in the Army.
Yeah.
And then when you moved from there to Northfield.
Yeah.
And
then when Alfred started to work for Teskey, and then when he wasn't able to work any longer, I think we lived there 2 years, and then we moved to Farmington, and there's where he passed away.
Yeah. He had been in good health all the way up to the last
all the way
8-10
up
months.
to then.
And that was in he passed away in what year?
68.
68. So now we enjoy having you in Fergus Falls, Selma, and I suppose you'll be chasing around to Kansas City and Cloquet and.
Well, it depends upon how I have to
feel good enough this winter, so you can do a little traveling. It'll be best to be south where it's just a little bit warmer, probably.
But I forgot to tell about when Alfred started to haul mail, we got $100 a month, and then he had to hire. He couldn't use the same team for 31 miles. So he rented a barn stalled out in the country and paid $10 a month. But he got the straw and the hay, but he had to buy the oats himself. And that was in 1918, and oats was pretty high then.
And then you had your expenses with the house and the heat and everything besides that. So
everything. So
didn't leave very much, did it?
So it didn't leave very much money.
Kind of a little different than what it is today.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Although the expenses are high now, too.
Yeah, yes.
Well, thank you very much, Selma.